Hello, my name is Adam and this video will be on narrative theory for my A2 Media Studies. First of all, I'm going to be talking about Vladimir Propp, who was a Soviet film theorist and analyst. So Propp's narrative theory was supposed to label different characters within a full-length film. For example, you have the hero. The hero usually has some kind of objective to meet, or they're trying to find something. The hero character is not always conventionally good. Sometimes you'll have an anti-hero whose morals are good, but their actions instead end up harming people instead of helping them. There's also the stereotypical villain who opposes the hero, but isn't necessarily evil. Thirdly, you have the donor who helps the hero by providing a so-called magic object. You also have the dispatcher, fourth, who sends the hero on his or her way. You also have the false hero, who may appear to be the actual hero, but in fact isn't, either because they don't have the right qualities or because they're actually on the bad guy's side. Sixth, you have the helper, who provides aid to the heroes and his or her allies. Seventh is the princess. This is used as a form of reward for the hero, but they may or may not require some form of protection, and they also may or may not be a woman. I'll also be talking about Todorov, who has established a series of patterns throughout many films. Todorov claims that all films must follow a set pattern that sort of goes along a line. You start with the equilibrium, where everything is all in place and happy and fine for the characters. The situation at hand is where it needs to be, and that's usually at the beginning of the story. Second of all, you have the disruption, which normally occurs after the equilibrium. This is some kind of event that causes a rift or an interruption within the characters' lives, and thus begins a journey to try and return to the equilibrium. Finally, you have the resolution, where the conflict has been resolved and the situation has been returned to as it was during the equilibrium at the start of the story. Todorov also theorised that there would be subversions to this theory, where films don't quite follow this structure. One example of this would be Game of Thrones' usage of parallel narratives. This is when there's several stories running alongside each other that may not seem too closely connected, but usually tied together by the end of the film or media piece. There's also the use of flashbacks and flash-forwards, which disrupt the viewer's sensation of how time is flowing as they watch. So it may be presented as a separate scene, it may be a dream sequence, or maybe a memory. There's also the twist, which is a subversion that's becoming more and more popular throughout films, which is thus causing the Todorov theory to become slightly more outdated. And this is when the story and the narrative will take a very sudden, unexpected turn that the audience could not foresee. Another theorist I'll be looking at is Roland Barthes. Barthes used codes to find similarities within narratives. These include action, enigma, scenic, symbolic, and cultural. An action is when an event occurs that results in a resolution. So this could be something like a duel between two nobles, or a firefight between soldiers in a battlefield. Enigmas are questions that are raised, usually at the beginning of the film, to sort of give a purpose to the narrative. These are very prominent in mystery and crime films. Symbolic codes are connotations and symbols that are used to express feelings and emotions in a more discrete manner. However, a semic connotation, or semic, has a more literal meaning and is much more obvious for the viewer to figure out. Cultural codes are what the audience can recognise fairly easily as being part of a culture.